Welcome to the next chapter.
Welcome everyone to the next chapter, the podcast where expert and curious minds are talking about applications of AI in media and content. And for today, we're going to talk about the publishing industry, something that's been around for hundreds of years. And I hope that everyone here has at least a few books in their home. Today, we're going to demystify everything that publishing is about. We're going to discuss the applications of AI in it. We're going to look at the publisher side, and we're going to look at the author side. And we're going to discuss what the publishers and what the authors are gonna have to do to adapt to the coming of AI, or well, more like what they should do. Let's see what they're gonna do. And for today, I'm joined again by Andy, our CPO and co-founder, and also by Regina, an amazing author and an amazing person, also a ghostwriter and a publishing consultant. So you can see that we are really, really well prepared for this one. And hi everyone, and welcome. How are you doing?
Hi Dana, thanks for having us.
Hi everyone. Hi Dana, thank you so much for having me. Very honored to be called an expert on AI already. After
Absolutely. I mean, I think that everyone that's trying and is interested in it is already 10 steps ahead of everyone else. So it's good that we're all here. And please, Regina, tell us a bit about yourself and your background.
I have been in the publishing industry for about half my life now, which is not hundreds of years, but decades, believe it or not. I have been an editorial director for some of the big German publishing houses for roughly 15 years now. I've been an author even longer. I've started writing since I was 10 years old. I am freshly into the world of AI, half a year now. Most of my publishing life, I've been in charge of deciding which manuscripts will become books or not, mostly in nonfiction. And my private writing is mostly memoirs, biography, a little bit of nonfiction as a ghost, and fiction, everything you can imagine, from science fiction to women's love, romances, in fiction, yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, full disclaimer now, you are everything that I want to be. And yeah, very, very happy to have you as part of the team here at Chapter as well. And Andy, you've been our guest on the first episode, but please tell us again. Actually, no, because last time Philip, I believe, introduced you, so now you have the chance to tell your own story, actually.
Yes, of course, happy to. My name is Andy. I'm Chief Product Officer and co-founder of Chapter. As co-founder and CPO, I'm responsible for basically everything that's related to product that Chapter does. Before I joined Chapter, I also spent half my life in the publishing industry. It's actually because Regina mentioned that, I also did the calculations, and it's true for myself as well. I spent some time there, especially in digital publishing and digital business development. So this is what I did there. And this is also where I met Regina for the first time, because at the publishing house I was working at that time, I was responsible for the digital stuff that I was just mentioning. And Regina was responsible for a certain vertical around healthy living. And this is where we basically met the first time and started some digital experiments. As you can see, we worked in a publishing house that was already very open to digital innovation, which is not very common in the publishing industry. So they all have found out that they have to do some shifts and actually develop into the digital space. But we had the great chance to work at a publishing house that was really always about innovation. And so we played around with stuff. Just coming back, how I ended up with Chapter is that in this specific role, I obviously stumbled across the topic AI, generative AI, and the other core principle of what we do at Chapter, which is the community economy, or Web3. So people coming together without an intermediary, aligning towards a common goal, and just doing their magic. And as you can see, these are two elements that have tremendous impact on what the publishing industry does, because publishers per se are intermediaries on the one hand, and what generative AI does is it creates content. And this is also like a huge part of what the publishing industry is all about. And so, yeah, I was really, really intrigued by these two elements. Met Philip and Daryl. You can listen to that entire story in our first episode. Yep. So I'll stop here.
Yep, about 30 minutes of it.
Yeah.
No, but yes, please.
That's how we ended here. And of course, as you always do, if you start new endeavors, you collect and gather the people around you that you enjoyed working with the most. And so Regina was actually one of the first ones that I gave a call and said, "Come on, we're gonna have some fun."
That was a great move. That was the great first step ahead. Well done. And you mentioned, yeah, of course, because you, Andy, worked in the digital side of things in innovation departments. How, before we jump into everything, how was that like to bring the publishers digital? Since it's also, in my opinion at least, is kind of the biggest innovation up until now, in a way. How did that look like, implementing that?
A lot of fun, because there is so much space to be explored. The level that most publishers start from, it's not low, but it's like in a mid area. Let's be politic about this. It's somewhere in the mid area. So there is a lot of room for improvement and to try out new stuff. And so when it comes to social media, when it comes to new forms of content that are delivered on a digital way to the customers, so when it comes to online video courses, for example, that you could do with life advice authors, when it comes to the entire area of ebooks, which is now very common in the publishing industry, but also there are different kind of business models emerging, like think about flat rate models and stuff. So you can also, like in the sales and distribution area, there's a lot to be discovered. Lots of space for innovation, lots of room for having fun and developing new business lines. But as you especially asked what this was like, on the other hand, it's always about keeping the balance of having decades and decades old industry on the one hand, and then doing this innovative stuff on the other hand. So basically, it's about bridging these two worlds, doing new stuff, not forgetting your heritage, doing new stuff, and also transferring the knowledge of the new stuff that you do to the old pieces of the business, so to say. So like it's always with innovation, this also requires a certain level of resilience, as I keep to say. So people that started in my department, was the first thing that I told them was, you have to be resilient. You have to tell stories again and again, but in the end, they will be heard. So this is basically also one of my experiences.
That's great. And principles that we're definitely going to have to follow now with the next technological advancements that we're here to discuss today. And yeah, before we jump in the thick of it, so to say, Regina, please give us a rundown of this publishing industry, right? So you mentioned one of your key jobs was bringing stuff from manuscript to book. And I know that there's so much stuff happening within it, but give us a rundown of this crazy life cycle.
As Andy already started to explain, the publishing house is like some kind of bridge between the reader, the bookseller, and the author. So it's kind of a dependency between all of these parts. The simplest way of explaining that involves a lot of reading what people want to tell you, a lot of stories, a lot of content, what people want to be books. And on the other side, always like have your eyes on the market and what the reader wants to buy, what the bookseller wants to buy. It's a little bit of trying to look into the future, because the process from idea to book actually takes a very long time. It's up to half year or even a whole year from the first meeting to the printed books in the shelves of the bookseller. So you have to have your eyes on the next new trend, on the next new genre, on the next new bestseller. It's a lot of gut feeling. Today, it's a lot of numbers as well. But as Andy already said, this is a business where heritage and your gut plays a big role, and that's, I think, why people love their jobs, even or most of all, they're very good at it. And yeah, it's like you're dependent on what the authors show you, what the existing authors are planning to write next. It's kind of finding the next superstar in the field of unpublished authors, and like painting a picture twice a year of a program that is in the end sold to the reader.
You could basically say that if everything that Regina just said, you could also divide it basically into three parts. A very wise man who owns a lot of publishing houses once told me, like, publishing is very simple. It's pull, process, push.
That's a good picture.
You identify the right authors, you identify the best stories, you have an ear on the market, and you bring in these brilliant artists that in the end write those books, because a publisher doesn't write any book. It's the authors. As a second step, you help these authors to shape their creative idea into a real product. An idea is nothing that you can sell. A book is something that you can sell. And from manuscript to book, there's actually a lot of stages. So you have to find the right packaging, which is the cover. You have to create marketing texts to sell it. And then as a third step, you push it out to the market. So you basically sell it to booksellers and you sell it to the consumers. And from my perspective, I would even add a fourth step, which from my perspective is really important and will become more and more important in the future, is
resilience.
That as well. But you build brands. You have to build brands, and you don't build a brand as a publisher.
Absolutely.
You build author brands.
Yes.
These are the personalities. The personality brands, these are the ones that you're focusing your efforts on, and therefore then you keep the readers, you keep the audience around that specific author or around a certain topic. And this is something that, most publishing houses still in some kind of way have to learn. That in the end, it's about building a long-lasting relationship between author and his or her audience. And it's like a book sale is not a one-time thing. It's actually something that you could really build via social media and also via other mediums. Then the book can really build a relationship between author and audience.
This is amazing. And I thank you for the great visual in terms of pull, process, push, the 3 Ps. And I'd like to stick with this for a moment and to jump now into some problems, right? Because while the industry is quite old and has processes in place and has certain jobs, I think we can all agree it's by no means ideal. And please share with me, as much as you're comfortable, some issues that you see at each of these stages, maybe, of pulling, processing, and pushing.
First of all, there are no problems. There are challenges and opportunities.
Correct. Spoken like a true product manager. Well done. What are some challenges, please?
Well, obviously, I'm speaking both as an editorial director and an author. The biggest challenge is when looking at the pull process to find the right authors and to find the right manuscripts, because even there is a very good system in the market, like you have the literary agencies to do some pre-sorting of all the things people want to write. You can obviously never read everything all the people are sending to publishing houses, to literary agencies, to the internet. It's like in Germany there is this wording, die Nadel im Heuhaufen, like finding in the right star in a sky full of stars.
Needle in the haystack.
Yes, needle
I'm
in the
here
haystack.
with the English translation.
And so the foremost task of my editorial team is to read and search for the next thing. And in the last years, with all the digital revolutions that have been there, like the internet, social media, blogs, the amount of where I can look for the next big superstar has grown even bigger. So they have to not only research manuscripts, they have to look at social media, they have to look at blogs, they have to look at certain special interest topics like dieting, living healthy, astrology. And all the time they have not only are the publishing house searching for the person who can write his or her story in a very good way, but who is actually able to market him or herself in a very good way. If you just go back 3 or 4 decades, an author would not have been in a position where he had to market himself. The book or his story would have been enough. But today, even the author of a book has to be like some kind of mini star himself and has to be able to present him or herself in a certain way. So the challenge is, while competing with other publishing houses, to be the first one to like discover the one person who is able to sell to hundreds of thousands of people his or her book. So I think that is one of the biggest challenges out there right now. You have to shape this actual product, and while doing this, having in mind that ideally your author becomes a brand if he isn't already. What is his target group? Who is he writing for? What is not only the book he or she is writing at the moment, but what could be 2 or 3 or 4 further books in the future to actually invest in the person and build a brand and like going this way for a long time. And if you are there, then you have to look at how can we make this person visible for a broad audience? Like what can the author himself or herself do to become visible? And how can a publishing house, which Andy said correctly, is not a very good brand for itself, do to support the person in the book and the message to get it out there in this sky full of stars, full of messages, full of other books and ideas.
Okay, that's really interesting. Andy, and we've been talking about this in private time and time again, and I already know your thoughts. I don't want to like spike controversy. I believe on Regina's first point on the pull process and finding the people. You have your thoughts of being like, okay, but it's all relationship based. But what are your what's your take on other issues that are in the life cycle?
Yeah, I basically agree with everything that Regina just said. She also tackled that, from my perspective, what I already mentioned. The biggest issue in the end is also like that brand building aspect, that relationship building aspect, and actually having direct contact with the readers, or let's put it broader, the consumers. So publishing has always been a B2B business, actually. So most people are not aware, but actually publishers sell to booksellers, and booksellers sell to customers and to readers. So there's a barrier in between there. Publishers don't have direct access to the readers. And this, from my perspective, in the digital age is a huge challenge. Because when it comes to digital product development, or like product development in general, you have to create products for your customers, and therefore you have to have customer insights. And you can't just base that on gut feeling. And in the end, what made the publishing industry what it is, a gatekeeper, because then there were people in the publishing houses sitting there and saying, so this is worth being published, this is not worth being published, but actually never asking the consumers what they want to read. Some authors are actually very good at building that relationship and actually having conversations with their fans and understanding what they want and what they need, and cater to exactly those needs with the stuff they write and with the covers they want to create and the brand that they build around themselves. But interestingly, if you look at this, then there is the author on the one hand, there's the consumer on the other hand. They have a relationship, and in between is that intermediary that Regina mentioned, the publisher, that bridge, but in the end that does not have any, or let's put it as a question: what is the value add of the intermediary in between if that relationship already exists?
Yeah.
And so therefore, I think a lot of publishing houses have to ask themselves, yeah, what is it that I bring to the table? What is the value add that I give to authors that they can't do by themselves? Self-publishing is a big thing. And a lot of self-publishers can actually make quite a nice and decent living of what they do without using any intermediary like a publisher. So in the end, to already answer that question also to a certain extent, and I think Regina certainly has also an opinion on that, but actually publishers don't have to understand themselves as gatekeepers, but as service providers. You write your stuff, we take care of the rest. We take care of marketing, we build your brand. We make sure that all the texts that are used to market your book are SEO optimized, for example. So all that kind of stuff that actually a creative person does not like to do. You can focus on writing your text. And second of all, and I think we have not tackled this yet, and this is actually also like one of the core things that a publisher does, is we help you to fine-tune that manuscript so that it's really, really, really good. So most raw manuscripts are not actually something that you would publish. It's a process. It's a creative process of an author and an editor who actually shape a product in the end. And so this is also something really valuable, I think.
All right. I think you already mentioned some of the key points where AI may come in, right? I really love what you said, Andy, about the publisher identifying as a service provider and not a gatekeeper or intermediary between the two main actors. So yes, let's talk about how AI can actually help them, or not. That's also your opinions to start to play this part. So we discussed marketing, we discussed brand, all of these things that surround the creative process where the authors, the creators should focus on. Yeah. How is AI gonna come in all of this?
Yeah, I think let's start with Regina. Let's start from the beginning again with the creative process. So because she's an author, how Regina, how do you apply AI?
Where the magic happens. Let's start where the magic happens.
Always.
I said at the beginning, I have been writing since I was a little child, and throughout all my years growing up, I really tried everything, all the cheesy fantasy teenage stuff, all the hateful murder your ex-boyfriend crime, everything you can imagine.
I second that.
It's like, as an author, while writing, you dive into a world where your stories are. You interact with the characters you create. You really are. You're just gone. You're in a whole different world, and it's all in your head. And to keep the process alive, I think everyone who writes has his or her own kind of ways to like keep the mood alive, be into the action. But I, for one, I make my mood boards, I make my timelines, I make my character descriptions, and in the past I have tried to give them as much life as I probably can. Normally, I make a mood board of my main characters, and I'm in the internet and searching for pictures of actors, athletes, rock stars, and just pin them on the wall. And I found it very difficult because I tended to like adapt these existing person's character into my my own characters. With AI, and especially with Midjourney, I started to like create everything I imagined in my head from scratch, more detailed than I could find this in any kind of stock picture library or whatever. And for me, it is something to get even more life in everything I'm writing on a visual basis, on a text basis. As simple as it is, I use it for research. Always double checking, of course, but it's so much easier, so much faster to just ask ChatGPT on how a mayor was called in 1793 Austrian village, what is the right wording, were women able to inherit the farmhouse of their fathers if they had no brothers. It's just, it takes all the nitty gritty, time consuming things off my shoulders and gives me so much more time, so much more space to actually write. I can write 10, 20 pages more on a day because I don't have to Google everything that's in the back of the story. So that's concerning fiction. When you have a look at nonfiction, I'm experimenting at the moment a lot with recipes, healthy lifestyle, self-motivation. It's just actually it is my body in the second screen, and I even ask when like doing some editorial work for a cooking book, how could we make this recipe more fancy? Give me a new and fresh way to make some pasta. I never ever take the texts getting from ChatGPT as the original version and put them somewhere, but it's just something that sparks new creativity in my mind. And when staring at a blank page, it is the ideal way to have some sentences there to work from that. So it is a very cool writing body.
Yeah, I like that phrasing, the writing body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have phrased it as a creative sparrings partner.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
So I basically really liked all of what you're saying. So
That's too hard to pronounce, so let's go with the creative body.
let's go with the creative body. All right. No, so really nice to see how you incorporate this into your creative process, and use it to even like to supercharge your own imagination, actually, or just like to have something that gets you going again.
Yeah.
So I really like that. And also, as you referred to the blank page, so the blank page syndrome is actually a thing. So something that lots of editors have to deal with sometimes, because like they have now signed that book with that author and the author just can't write. He has a blockade or she has a blockade and can't write. So a really interesting quote that I found once was a quote that emerged from an experiment that Google did. That experiment from Google was called WordCraft. And what they basically did is they used Palm, if I remember correctly, so a large language model. And they thought, okay, what can this do for authors in the creative writing process? So let's create a nice interface so that they can actually use it in their writing process. So you basically had some kind of like a sidebar where you were actually able to prompt, but not like just like not only with a text box, but actually it helped you to create that prompt. And you could also like highlight certain areas and then tell Palm to, okay, now rephrase this or give me an alternative for that, or what would be possible outcomes of this particular situation that I just described here. Then they gave this particular interface, that WordCraft interface, to, I don't know, like 12 or 20 authors from a very diverse background, and told them, play around with it, have fun. And then they collected feedback. So how people used it, what they liked, what they did not like about it. And one of them actually answered, it is really nice because this was a blank page that did not behave like one. So I really like that quote. So it's actually a tool that helps you to overcome blank page syndrome.
Yeah.
So everyone who's not aware, check out WordCraft. They have a website at Google and describe the entire project. So I think this is something that was really inspiring when I saw it.
It really sounds like it. And also when Regina was explaining the process that she's going through, especially with research. And I remember once I was in Barcelona and I had this like creative, I guess, spur of the moment, so to say. And I was sitting in front of the building trying to write. And I was so into the story that I got more and more detailed. But the more detailed you get, the more information you need to collect. Because obviously I'm not a Gaudi expert. And then the time that I had to put into that really made me become frustrated with the story instead. And it was really, all of these ideas, and I kept pushing it back. Or like, no, I have to continue writing to stay in the flow. I'm just going to put some random information here and I'll go back to it and research it. And I did this like 30 times. And then where I'm going with this. So I think this use case in itself is fantastic. And also, like both of you said, that you're not taking the information that comes out of it and you slap it onto your story document, and then that's it, this is mine. It's really just allowing you more and more to go with the flow in your story without all of these disruptions that can really lead to killing the moment that you'd never want to happen. But with all of these great things in mind, there's still people that are still afraid of it, right? Or there's also some movements that are happening with author coalitions or groups saying that no, this is not really helping us out. What are the points where, let's first stick with authors and then would love to go to publishers too, that authors need to do to integrate this technology in their process in a way that really empowers them, instead of fueling this fear of, oh, it's a machine, I don't know what's going to happen on the other side?
Well, I think the first thing is to just try it out and realize that it won't bite you. I think there is this implemented fear in every author, probably comes with the job and with the talent, that someone somewhere will steal your idea. And there are colleagues who won't even talk to other authors about things they are working on currently, because they fear that someone is going to steal the idea and sell it and write the next bestseller before them. And I can relate to that to a certain degree. I know the anxiety when twice a year all the new novels are published, and you always have this very, very tiny angst in your head that there is something similar which you're working on at the moment. But this fear is as old as the industry itself, and as old as art in itself. Everything we are writing, we are have a look at art, at music. Everything is like connected, and that is the beauty of it all. So there won't come a artificial intelligence that steals your idea, even if you use ChatGPT. The other way around, it probably makes you faster in your own idea, and you'll be the one who publishes first, and some other author will be very angry because you're the one. So I think these are the most biggest fears: to have your idea stolen, or like to become redundant, to become like extinguished. But as with the fear, we are using the assistance of tech, but also of every other device we can imagine for hundreds of years to create our stories. So it's just another tool. It's just another thing that makes you faster or more creative, or broadens your horizon and gives you something back. I know it is hard to overcome these fears that go to the core of what you are, like being an artist. But everyone who always asks me, I give the same answer: just try it out. It takes one or two connections to it, and you will realize that it won't take something away from you. It will just add.
Absolutely. And you gave some really useful tips earlier as well, to how you are actively using it. So yeah, please, everyone listening,
and if it's
take
just,
note of those.
A colleague once told me, oh, your characters are very good, but you are terrible with names. Your names are horrible. And I don't see it that way, but creating names for my characters is the one thing ChatGPT is super. You can just say, he or she lives in this area, this time, what are common names or what are totally uncommon names? And then you get 10, 20, 50, 60 names you can just choose from. So you can overcome the things you are not too good at with this tool.
A shared ground between people working in publishing and the authors that are like suspicious of AI and basically think this is something not good and bad is that, from my perspective, they are heard. Because when we spoke about AI in the past, we always spoke about, this will help to cure cancer, because AI will learn how to identify cancer cells in a very, very early stadium already on an image. Or it will revolutionize supply chain management. So really boring stuff, basically. But we never talked about that AI will replace or in some kind of way be able to do creative work. So this is, I guess, the part where most people say that, okay, like if a machine creates stuff, this can't be good. It can't be as good as if a human author creates that. And yes, they might be right. It might not be as good yet, but these LLMs are pretty good at producing text and really compelling text. So this is what they are trained for. I guess most of you are also familiar with these several stages of grief that you have to go through whenever you experience something shocking. I think at a certain stage, we just have to accept that these tools are now there and that we have to incorporate these into the processes and actually also acknowledge what they are able to do, which is really creating compelling text and being a supportive tool in creative processes. And so in publishing, I also see a lot of people actually starting experimenting with it. So like Regina said, on the author side, the publishers do that as well. There are some fields of application that are also rather on the technical side, but metadata, for example, is one. It sounds really strange for people who are not in the industry, but what metadata basically is all the information you deliver on the internet that is related to that specific book. So it's the cover, it's the copy text, it's a lot of keywords that you deliver to Amazon and the likes, etc., certain categories that you deliver. And this is all manual work. So, and it's really hard and tiring work. So this is something where an AI can definitely assist with. So people are playing around with that. Can it help us to create metadata? Another point is, can it actually write copy? Why not? So all of you might be familiar with Jasper AI, which is an AI tool that is 100% trained on creating copy text. So why not use AI for copywriting? So in our internal processes. Why not use it, one last thing, even in a way that helps us to shape new products? Either by creating like outlines and structures, so especially in the life advice or nonfiction book segment, you always need structures. You need basically a table of contents before you actually write it. So this is also something that these tools could help you with. And if I'm ought to be very blunt and I'm blonde and blunt. Actually, into the third area, which is then pushing out to the consumer, maybe we can think about whole entirely new products. Why do you have to read certain content? Why can't you just have a conversation about it? So I think conversational UI and actually chatting with a partner about a certain topic might be something that really revolutionizes how nonfiction works and how educational books work. Because from my personal experience, the teachers that I learned the most from were the ones I just had conversations with. And they were asking me a lot of questions. And so they gave answers. And then they guided me with other questions into different areas and directions. And so I learned. Why not apply this to the education space? This is actually something we should have an entire podcast episode on, because I think this is something that really fascinates me. How can AI revolutionize education?
I think we should have a chapter product, by the way, on the whole educational space. I have some ideas I'm going to pitch to you later. But for the purpose of today, you gave a great rundown on the non-creative yet still creative potential applications within publishing itself. But also within publishing, there seems to be some resistance, and every department that touches either metadata, either copy, right, for selling or marketing or any other purposes, thinks of their own job, of course, as creative. And we have this pushback a little bit of, also what, I don't know, the quality of the output that's gonna come out. How could we introduce this within publishers in a way that would make them better at what they do, and not to be seen as something that is, it's going to take their jobs away, which is always what now is the main thing. There's still this resistance here. What can we, or the technology itself, the evolution of technology, how should that look like for a successful integration of AI within the publisher lifecycle?
So from my perspective, the answer to that is basically the answer that I would give to all AI products that you build on base of an LLM. It is, you take an LLM as a basis, and then you have to do two things. You have to fine tune it to the specific use case, because LLMs are generalists. They can do a lot of stuff quite well, but very specific things, not 100%. So you have to fine tune them to that specific use case. So create metadata, please, or a fine tuned model that actually replicates the very specific tone that one publishing house might have in his outward facing communication, for example. So this is one thing, fine tuning. The second thing is you have to provide it with an interface that people can use in their specific process. So this again will not be a text box like ChatGPT, but maybe it can be integrated either into their very specific tools, or it can be something that lays on top and in some kind of way interacts with the specific applications, but it has always be tied to the very specific use case that one particular person in a publishing house wants to solve. So these are basically the two things. Then there's a third element. It's always about humans. So doing innovation in publishing is most of the times not so much about technology, but it's about people. And therefore, you have to create showcases. You have to do experiments and then actually show, look what we did here, and this was the outcome. Why don't we apply this across the entire thing that we're doing here? So always starting small, creating first showcases, showing them, and then expanding. And also always catering to what people actually do. So not saying this is something that will replace you, bye-bye, but actually saying, look, what you're doing here is you're responsible for metadata. I can see that you're struggling with. What about this tool that helps you doing that? What about the tool that makes you in the end become better at the job that you're assigned to? And I think this is also something that we always have to keep in mind when we introduce new technologies to an existing environment. We have to be very mindful with the people and actually help them to do a better job.
Great. And I think I'm also making a point of it to get the guests in every episode to mention this in one way or another as a reminder until people are going to understand. Thank you so much. I think now I have one more question before we jump into the hot seat statements that I have to do. Let's look at it a bit. So we looked at the...
We don't want to.
But I want to. And because you are my guests, well... we'll deal with this later when we get there, but yes, just get used to it. You have 5 minutes to prepare. We looked at the authors. We looked at the other side of the coin, which is publishers. Let's talk about the audience now, the little bit in the middle. Well, very complex relationships we've already seen. But yeah, what about the readers, the fans, and their experience? What can AI, what will AI do to it, for it, with it?
Well, we talked a lot about authors building a relationship with their readers. First of all, not every author is very good at being on a stage in self-marketing or building a relationship to his audience, his or her audience. There are these people who are very comfortable behind their screen, clicking away and living in their stories and just being there and giving the story to people, but rather not giving themselves away. So and it's already existing. It's called fan fiction. It's a way for readers to get in contact with the people who created the characters and the stories they love. And we have that in fantasy and science fiction, but a lot in new adult and romance already, that there are readers who make pictures, graphic novels, on the basis of novels, on the basis of existing stories, and just let them carry on and go on. I think there is a whole universe of Harry Potter fan fiction.
Oh, yes.
and it's a wonderful way for readers who most of the time are readers because they're not authors, because they're not that talented, to drive the stories on and to make pictures of their favorite characters and to create spin-offs and to get some assistance while doing that and becoming themselves like creators too, which probably is what most of the readers would love to be. So it's enabling readers to connect to the stories and the persons behind it.
Yeah, love that.
Absolutely.
Love that.
And I think that they're also, because you said Harry Potter, and it holds a special place in my heart. I watch it every Christmas without fail. But the people that are writing the fan fiction on Harry Potter, to me, and I think to everyone that reads it, they are also authors or creators of some kind, because they made that the world that I really didn't want to let go in any way, and it was so painful when it all had to end. I can still go through, like you said, go on with it. And they, to me, were really equally there with J.K. Rowling. Of course, not in the form of the story, but simply the feeling that they gave me that, okay, I can still continue with this. It doesn't have to stop. And maybe with this, now it can push them one step further and really elevate their stories in a way that wasn't possible before. So fully agree.
And I think this is a part where it really, really becomes interesting. Because if you look at these great, huge IP universes, so to say, so you have mentioned Harry Potter, we could also take, I don't know, Game of Thrones, and the likes, Star Wars, of course. These story universes exist and are so successful because their fans live and breathe these stories. They want to be part of it. They also would like to have a say and expand on that stories, like you just mentioned. And I think it's a huge opportunity if we and the creators and the holders of that IP actually let go and actually say, okay, fans, you can also create, you can also contribute to this universe. We won't sue you, but we actually help you to expand our universe by providing you with a tool that we have in some kind of way fine-tuned so that it actually fits our values, that it fits the tone of the entire story, that it fits the visuals, if we talk image generation, of our world. And we prevented it from you doing any bad stuff with it. So please be our guest. Start creating, dear fans. And I think there is a lot of opportunity in that, because then in the end, storytelling and story universes will become much more fluid. And it's not just like one person or one corporation holding to it, but it's actually opening it up and helps it expand. So I really like that.
Absolutely. And we have, to everyone listening, you can go to our first episode to hear more about turning the consumer into a creator. And our second episode talks all about storytelling. So yes, go and listen and learn more about that. And now we arrive to Andy's least favorite moment in the day, which is hot seat statements. And for this reason, I'm also going to start with you, where I think, you already kind of alluded to it, well, more than just alluded, but publishing houses will no longer be needed in the future. Long pause. That's okay. That's okay. I'm here to fill it as you think. This is a big one.
Yeah, this, like I said, you always, when you work in publishing, the first thing you learn is how to become political and how to be very, very careful with how you phrase statements. So publishing houses, understood as simply intermediaries and printing machines, yes, will be no longer needed in the future. Publishing houses, or broader taken media corporations, who focus on creators and actually helping creators to create their stories with different tools that they provide, with lots of services that they provide to actually market this specific story, and even, like we just said, expand it into a story world, will definitely be needed if they understand themselves like that. And then they could actually add a lot of value and live long and prosperous.
That's really amazing. Thank you. See, it was a great one. And Regina, for you, which again, you already touched upon it earlier, I really need to level up my hot seat statement game. So I'll be way better prepared for the next time we meet. AI will be used to steal ideas and make it hard to protect the IP of the authors.
Well, that's an easy one. No.
Yeah.
Full stop. No. And actually, I would love to come back to one thing Andy said about actually opening up this universe of stories and ideas, because for me as an author, it would be basically the biggest compliment you could ever pay me if readers out there would take up on my ideas and create them, maybe even after I am no longer on this wonderful earth, and carry on my stories to the end of time. And I think it is nothing that could ever steal something, but it's like something that makes growth possible for everyone who has the wish to create something.
Absolutely. Collaboration and not competition. I think it's the direction we're also moving, at least with the principles that we have here at Chapter, which I think is really, really amazing. So yeah, this was it. Thank you so much. It's been a great episode and a lot of learning.
It's over yet.
A lot of creative talk. Yes, we can stay and talk more if you want.
This is like this is also a thing you need to know about publishing. People in publishing love to talk a lot, a lot.
Yep,
but it's always good to cut it down at a certain point. So you did exactly the right thing.
I'm trying. But yeah, let's do another follow up maybe in a few months' time to see what's happened in the meantime. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you, and to everyone listening, thank you for listening, and see you in the next chapter.